Hello everyone, welcome to another short video. Today I would like to take a look at the segment of an interview that was done by Flat Earth Dave Interviews 2 channel with Dr. John, who is right here. He seems to have a relaxed talk with the DITRH. He's pretty much on the globe side. And I think his answers are very reasonable for someone who does not have anything to do with natural science on a professional level. But yeah, no, and I well, kind of looked over the parts of the interview to find some content to do because, as you may have noticed, I've been lacking in the upload schedule, which is mainly because I feel like the content that has come out with Flat Earthers was a bit lacking as of the last couple of weeks, and I can't be bothered to watch 3-hour live streams, so I thought I'd just jump into some random live stream, and I found something that I think is worth talking about. Yeah, now I'd say let's go into it, and we'll see why I picked this part. It contains a very nice misconception.
Assuming that these stars are hundreds of trillion miles away, the planets are rocky balls or gassy balls, whatever they are, floating in a space vacuum, which is impossible, but we'll
Citation needed.
just say gravity holds everything together. What if you were actually looking at a light, not claiming what it is, that was only very close, very small and very close? How would you know? Like if you're looking at, you say, okay, that star is, Betelgeuse, and it's, 1,000 times bigger than the sun, or whatever it is, right? Or that.
The interesting part about Betelgeuse, the issue is that that's not how it's pronounced in German. In German, it's pronounced Betelgeuse, which is closer to the actual name as far as I'm aware. And I'm very irritated every time someone says Betelgeuse. I don't know. Either way, Betelgeuse. The thing about Betelgeuse is that it's a very late star. It's a star that is close to doing a supernova, right? And when stars are being close to dying or to ending their star stage in their cycle of life, they expand significantly, and they can vary a lot in terms of brightness and in terms of stability, right? They become less bright and sometimes more bright because they have a very irregular pulse pattern and all of that kind of stuff, right? And that's what makes Betelgeuse so interesting. It's because it's comparatively close, and it's close to dying. Actually, there has been a really interesting progress. I believe it was in 2019 with a guy called Montarchet, who actually was at our university a couple of years back. So I got to talk to him in person. Who found out that at the time Betelgeuse was diminishing significantly in brightness. I would encourage you to look it up. They actually made resolved pictures of Betelgeuse. Super interesting thing. I'll talk about it more in a bit.
That's another light that's, a million times closer and a million times smaller. How would you know?
That's a good point, Dave. I actually think it would be.
You would know that actually by parallax, for example. You could do parallax measurements. Just an example.
Easier to do on our model than their model.
Right.
Looking at stars and determining what they are using the frequency.
Well, you guys can do it.
Yeah, but we can do it. Like the stars that you're looking at, John, you have to understand.
I have yet to see a single flat earther who actually analyzes anything about the star. I would be very, very, very highly interested in a flat earther taking parallax measurements of a star for themselves and coming to their own conclusions.
You can see stars with your naked eye, right? You can see.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you know that your eye has an angular resolution limit? You can see a penny if I held it right here, but a penny is at 200 yards away. You can't see it. Its angular size is too small.
And this is where it gets interesting. They conflate resolving something with being able to see the light from something, which are two completely different things. And that's where I think it's so interesting right now.
Whatever the distance is, I forget the equation. But things get too small to see, right? So our sun,
Absolutely.
186,000 miles across. If it was a mile over your head and you went outside and looked up, it would fill the whole sky, right?
Oh,
That's
correct.
It would fill the whole sky. Then we move it 93 million miles away, and now it's the size of a dime or a nickel held at arm's length, right? Just like we see it.
Mm-hmm.
So it reduced in size, 93 million miles away, 8 light minutes. Okay, if I doubled the distance, it's going to get a lot smaller. Is it, Nathan? Is it half as small or 1/4 the size?
You can't tell that it's not a linear relation.
Half.
Okay, so half.
That's wrong. the angle, if you move it twice as far away, doesn't just half. That's not how perspective works. Not exactly surprised that they don't know that.
So
Okay.
when we go half, now we're the size of maybe a pencil eraser, maybe a little bigger, right? So that's twice the distance. Now we go 4 times the distance. It's now pretty darn small. 8 times the distance. It's now the size of a star. Okay, we'll call it a big star, right? At 8 times the distance, 8 times 8, 64. We'll call it a light hour. At a light hour, our sun is very small. Let's go 2 light hours.
Yep.
It's tiny. 4 light hours, 8 light hours, 16 light hours. A light day. At a light day away, if you do the measurements, you could not see our sun.
Yeah, you see, that's where you're wrong. First of all, you can't do the measurements because there is nothing that is 1 light day away that is a star. First of all, so you can't do the measurements. If anything, you mean you do the calculations. And if you did the calculations, if you put a star that is with the properties of our sun, a light day away would be the brightest star in the sky apart from our sun. So I don't know what it is that you want to say here. I mean, I do. He's trying to say that you couldn't resolve that, which I didn't calculate. Maybe you can, maybe you couldn't. Not exactly important. The thing is, you would definitely be able to see it. The thing is, when you don't resolve something, but it's still bright enough for you to see, you see it as a point source. It is then completely determined on it's completely dependent on how you see the thing in terms of atmosphere, for example. If you see something that's smaller, so that you can't resolve it, effects like the atmosphere, like speckles. I made a video about astronomical seeing a while back, which goes into that also a little bit. Those things become important, right? But in principle, you see it as a point source.
The size that they tell us it is at 1 light day away. Just stick with me for a second. Stick with me.
Okay.
Okay. At 1 light day away, you could not see the sun. Can you see Polaris
That's wrong.
with your naked eye?
Yes.
Answer is yes, you can, right?
Yes. I mean, I saw it a couple nights ago.
Yeah. And so Polaris, they say, is 46 times bigger than the sun. So
About, I don't know, maybe, yeah, sure.
if at 1 light day away, we can't see the sun with our naked eye, if Polaris
But you would.
was 46 light days away, you could not see it. It's beyond the angular size.
That's not true.
I said, I can handle it. 46
That may be true. I don't know, but sounds reasonable. But that's not the point.
light days away, right? Let's round that up to 2 light months, 60 light days away, right? You definitely can't see it. Let's round that up to a year, right? 6 times farther than that. You definitely can't see it. They tell us Polaris is
You can see it. You can't resolve it, but you can see it.
433 light years away. Where's the point where we're going into Narnia nonsense pseudo?
You can calculate this point. I mean, you can't, obviously, but in principle, we'd be able to calculate these things. I did calculate how bright you would see a star that is this and that far away in another video not too long ago. Maybe take a look at that if you genuinely are interested in learning something.
Science world. It happened right away, actually. But how far do I have to go? So you believe that you can see something 433 light years away that you couldn't see it 2 light months away, and I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt by rounding up to 2 light months, and then you believe you can point a thing at it and say, oh, that's made out of this and that. How about if that light was just a few miles up, and you're looking at it and taking some measurements and
If it was just a few a few miles up, you would be seeing a very significant parallax with you changing your position, but we do not see that. So it doesn't.
maybe there is some accuracy to it. Maybe. I don't know. Nathan, what do you
Yeah, 433 light years away. How's that thing tethered to the Earth for at least 50 years? They built the Georgia.
That's the crap about the Georgia Guidestones again. I don't know why they still bring it up, because they know our answer to it. But here they actually go into it a little bit more specifically. This is why I actually want to briefly have a look at it.
Guidestones 50 years before I showed up and took this time lapse, and all the stars rotate right around this little oculus. Polaris was the only star you could see in this hole, and you're saying from 433 light years away, 50 years later, it's still through this one hole, bro.
50 years is actually very little in astronomical timescales. The full cycle that it's important here, I think, is like 25,000 years, and even then it doesn't move that much, right?
And you'd have to have gravity pulling on everything, not just in our solar system, but pulling on everything near Polaris.
That's wrong. You have no idea how gravity works, and you didn't have any idea for the last, as long as you've been on YouTube.
Somehow Polaris maintains some sort of
It's because Polaris is extremely far away and we move very little compared to that huge distance.
Vector directly above Earth's axis, or the Earth is just stationary. And that's
John, let me just throw something
Okay,
out there.
I would like to address your.
No, I'm gonna let you go. I want to go to. You are familiar with the Georgia Guidestones? Yes.
To be honest, no.
Okay,
I'm not,
that's fine. Let me just throw it out real quick.
Thank
It's
you.
a monument that was built in 1981 down in Georgia. Very strange story behind it. That's a whole nother podcast. And it has it's a calendar.
I like how Nathan Thompson just nods along in a very bizarre way. Yeah.
And a timepiece, but through the center stone, there's a little tiny hole, and you could see Polaris through it. Okay, and so Polaris stays in that hole all year, all the time. Right now, they tell us that the Earth is wobbling, and that 2,000 years ago it was pointing towards a different star,
Yes, that's what's called the axial precession.
or whatever. And in 2,000 years from now, we'll point to another star. But we're happened to be at the time where Polaris is lined up. They lined it up with Polaris. The problem
Polaris isn't even perfectly lined up. It's just pretty good.
is it was up for over 40 years.
That's correct. That's not a problem.
The Earth wobbles at 1 degree every 76 years.
Yeah, and that's in principle true, but I don't. He gives you the wrong idea of what is meant here by degree. It's an axial precision. It doesn't rotate 1 degree away from it, because then it would be a problem. But that way it isn't. I'll show you why and what that means in a little.
So that's more than a half a degree. It would have moved out of there. A half a degree is 1.5 moon widths, and so it would not be there, but it was still there. And then after Nathan made that
That's the misconstruction we're talking about.
observation, and we started making videos on it, and they started going viral. You know what happened to the Georgia Guidestones?
Yeah, they got blew up by some extremely strange conspiracy gang that actually should be quite nice for you flat earthers. As far as I'm aware, it was due to a conspiracy that they are part of some cult or some piece like that. It has something to do with like the extreme MAGA Republicans or something like that. So it's really weird. As I'm not from the US and I care genuinely little about them, they don't really know about it.
A terrorist blew them up right out of nowhere, boom, and then within hours, bulldozers were there.
I love how they think that that's the only way that you could tell that, and I love how Nathan just agrees, like, yeah, got him. When every I don't want to use the word idiot here, but I think I should, that every idiot could tell that Polaris is always at the same point, as if you need some stones for that. Completely ridiculous again. I love the simple mind of the flat earther.
Took the whole thing down. There was no investigation ever. You know why?
There is an investigation, as far as I'm aware.
Because that was rock solid proof that the Earth is not wobbling and that space
You have just no clue. That I love it.
isn't spinning out of control.
Also, it said on the Guidestones that they wanted to reduce world population using pharmacy and big pharma.
It didn't. The Georgia Guidestones were just super weird, and it's just one of those things that can only happen in the US, I think.
And so that's another reason to tear it down. What was going on in 2020? Well, they were making everyone wear masks and telling them to be afraid of parks and beaches. But walling both of us up, and pleasure to talk to you.
I do like to face the controversy, and I don't like to censor things either. That's like I'm very anti-censorship, and I mean that's why our previous debate got lots of very passionate.
And listen. I want to apologize for some of the flat Earth comments that'll come on this, because flat Earthers get really passionate. Listen,
there is another part that I'm waiting for, so this is why we're still watching.
You're a good guy. I think you want to know the truth. I think that you studied hard in school and memorized a lot of stuff. Okay, and you did. I can tell. I know that you did. But let's stick on what we were just talking about a second. The angular size of the sun at 2 light hours away is impossible to see.
I find the wording here peculiar. The angular size is important to see. First of all, the angular size isn't something that we see or can't see. Due to the angular size, we can't resolve it, is what he meant. And that I might agree. I didn't calculate it exactly, but that sounds reasonable, I guess. But what he's implying here is because we can't resolve it, we can't see it.
Angular size of Polaris at 2 light months away is impossible to see, but we can see it. You have to.
And actually, John here gives a nice rebuttal. And it's like, yeah, but how can we resolve a laser beam, but we can still see it? He actually again, for someone who's not involved in natural sciences, I think he gives very thought out rebuttals. Yeah, but either way, let's go to the presentation now. Right, here we have the presentation, which has the title DITRH as nuclear pod stars, and Nathan Thompson, of course, which is somewhat unsurprising. So first of all, the two claims that I would like to talk about here is that we do not see the stars because of the resolution limit, which is not how seeing works at all, and that the Earth wobbles, in his words, 1 degree every 76 years, which is just axial precession, and it's not how you think it works. So let's begin with the resolution limit. It's for resolution, not for whether or not something is visible. And on the left-hand side here, you have the angle that can be resolved, which is 1 times 22, the wavelength, divided by the diameter of whatever you're looking to have a look at it. So can we see something? If it works well, it also depends on brightness, but in principle, the way that this works is the following. I calculated it here for the human eye at 550 nanometers, which is more or less in the middle of the visible light range. The opening of the iris of the human eye is about 4 centimeters, so 0.04 meters. That gives us an end result that is like this. This is in radians then. And for example, we know that the moon is about half a degree, which is 0.009 radians. So what we can resolve is a lot smaller than the moon. So we should be able to resolve the moon, meaning that we should see it as something more than a point source, which obviously is what we do. If we take the same example with Betelgeuse, or the Betelgeuse, sorry, we can see that, well, we should not be able to resolve Betelgeuse because Betelgeuse is very far away. It is a very big star, but it's also very, very far away. However, if, for example, we have a look at Antares, which has an angular size of about 2 milliarc seconds, we can see that, well, no, it's not 2 milliarc seconds, sorry, 2 millionths of a radian. That's not milliarc seconds, I'm sorry. We can see that, well, with the very large telescope, the VLT, at visible wavelengths, we actually should be able to resolve Antares. Well, would you look at that? We can. That's an actual picture of interferometric picture of Antares. Interferometry is when you use multiple telescopes in one to gain a very, very huge diameter here. So in principle, you just use 2 telescopes that are far enough away, and which gives you the ability to use their distance kind of as your D in the formula, which is very, very nice. I did that in my master's thesis, not with the VLT, but with ALMA in radio. Yeah, so what we see depends on the brightness. It depends on the position where it is. It depends on the atmosphere and if the conditions allow us to resolve it or to see it. And it obviously depends on our devices and facilities. You can see more with a telescope because a telescope has a diameter. My cheap, small, kind of shitty telescope has a diameter of like 70 millimeters, which is more than 10 times the diameter of the human eye. So yeah, seeing isn't resolving. That's a very, very, very important difference here. Flat earthers get those confused very, very often. And about the 1 degree every 76 years, I hope the presentation isn't flickering for you too, because it is flickering for me now, very, very badly. You can see in the animation here that this is what is meant by precession. And if you divide the circle up into 360 degrees, it moves 1 degree every 71 years. He said 76, close enough. So this 1 degree movement here won't put us far off the position of Polaris when you look at the range that you are in here, which is not that much. So now it's fine, but in like 200, 300, 400 years, the Georgia Guinestones would have been maybe out of alignment. I don't exactly know how big the hole is. It's about 2 degrees, I think. So in like 300 years, we would have slowly gotten a problem with seeing the thing, but right now it's not a problem at all. Yeah, and I will leave you with that. I hope the presentation isn't flickering, and with that, I will see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this very quick, very kind of shoddy video, maybe consider leaving a like. If you enjoyed it a lot, consider considering subscribing. I will in the future upload a video that is about my master's thesis, because actually in less than 2 weeks I will have my master's degree, finally. And then I can talk about my master's project and what I did and why it's very cool. Yeah, either way. I wish you a nice time until the next video. Goodbye!